Hear me okay?
Yep.
Can you hear me back there? Okay, good, thanks. So my name is Ben Grimstead. I'm here from Decorah, and I'm a banker at Decorah Bank and Trust Company. And we have quite a bit of experience with solar, and so I'll talk a little bit about what I know. But looking around the room, there's a lot of people here who probably know more about the actual science and workings and the inverters and things like that about solar. So if you ask me too specific questions, we'll have to defer them to the installers outside. Or if anybody here wants to jump in on the conversation, feel free to do that. If you have any questions along the way, certainly ask. My presentation is pretty simple, so I hardly feel qualified to stand up in front of this room. I know it wasn't too many years ago I was sitting in the back and barely made it through a place like this myself. But yeah, so we've done a lot of solar and renewable energy type things in our business and in our family. Where I learned a lot of this stuff is my dad, Larry Grimstead. Maybe a lot of you know him. He's a local fellow who's big into renewable energy and has invested in solar and wind and has a net zero house and was an investor in the large solar field at Luther College here. So we know a little bit about solar and have done it for a while. So thanks for coming in this morning on this beautiful sunny solar day to learn about solar. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the bank because that's kind of the viewpoint I have. And you know, our business, we actually put solar panels on our roof here in Decorah in 2012. It was a 21 kW system, and then in 2014 we have a bank at Cresco, and we added a 37 kilowatt system to that. So we know from a business it works, and I know this is the residential track. The business track is down the street, but from a business standpoint, you know, you get depreciation, you get some tax benefits in addition to the tax credits, and so it was economically it was a very good investment for us, but also of course just the right thing to do. And so we've done that in our business. And so maybe some of you don't know what kW means, and what does 21 kW mean. And you know, it's a difference for everybody's house, but like my house. Well, I'll talk about that later, but an average house, I think, probably is going to be a 5 or 6 kW system. So if you're looking at an average, a small home, if you put a 5 to 6 kW system on that home, that would take care of a lot of their electricity needs, depending on how much electricity they use, of course. So if you think about a 21 kW system, that would probably be like 3 to 4 houses. And so that's what we could fit on top of our business. I personally put it on my house. In 2012, I put a 5.4 system on there. That's what I could fit. I've discovered that I wish I could put more on now. But a 5, so I'll talk a little bit about my house. At the time, I've got a 4,000 square foot house. It's too big. And I was using about 12,000 watts or kilowatts. And so 12,000, and so in order to do the solar panels and in order to get the Alliant rebate at the time, which is not any longer available, we had to first do some things to increase the efficiency of our house. And so we had somebody come in and from Alliant, and Winneshiek Energy District will do the same thing now, of course. But they came in and they gave me some suggestions on how I could reduce the usage of my electricity. And so I did things like I got rid of an old beer fridge. Yeah, it was using a lot of electricity. And replaced all the light bulbs to compact fluorescent or now LED. And, you know, put more insulation in the attic and just some simple things like that. And so I was able to get my kilowatt hours from 12,000 down to 10,000. And then I put in this 5.4 kilowatt system, which they estimated would produce about 6,900 kilowatts. And so I was able to offset about 70% of my usage in my house, which is, you know, felt good. And the cost at the time was $20,000, and it's about $3.70 per watt. Well, that cost has greatly come down now. And so for those of you who are thinking of doing this, you're going to get a better deal than I did. Then I went and bought a Chevy Volt, and so now that I did that, I wish I'd have put a bigger system on too, because it, when I plug it in, uses a fair amount of electricity, but then I don't have to buy gasoline, so that's kind of cool. And so it's kind of fun to be able to think that I can drive back and forth to work and around town, and I'm using the sun for energy. And so that was pretty fun. So that's kind of what I did at my house. In the bank, we're really trying to promote and encourage people to do renewable energy projects. And so far in the last couple of years, going back and look at the loans we've generated, we've done 38 loans for just over $1.3 million. And so a lot of those are residential projects, folks that put panels on their homes, and we finance those for them, try to make it real easy. And then there's some larger commercial projects we've done on that too. But if you look at all the solar installations around this community, a lot of them, people had the means and were able to pay for them themselves. But if not, we try to make it easy for people to do. Additionally, our bank is pretty well tied in with the Winneshiek Energy District. It's a wonderful organization. They've done a lot of great things in the community. They've gone into a lot of homes and businesses, and they've been able to try to find ways of saving people electricity, energy, making things more efficient. And so we're a sponsor of them, and we actually buy some renewable energy credits from them to try to offset our own business's carbon footprint. And so we've been doing some good things with them. Okay, so then, and again, some people, this is going to be pretty accurate, but for other people who use more electricity, or everything is a little bit different in certain cases. So I'm just going to give you an idea of a sample loan or house that we've helped finance. So somebody puts in a 6 kW system on their house, or if it's not on your house, it could be if you've got enough room in your yard, you can put it up on a pole, and then you don't have to worry about getting on the roof of your house. By the way, if you're going to do that, you just want to make sure your roof is in good condition, so that once you put the panels on, you don't want to mess around with your shingles for a while. If you were going to need to reshingle your house, you'd want to probably do that first, because otherwise you have to take all the panels off, and that'd be a lot of work. But I put them on top of my house, and it seems to be working great. So right now, you can actually buy the panels at, I think, below $3 a watt. I told you that I spent $3.70, and that was a few years ago. The cost of panels is really coming down, so it's becoming a lot more economical to do these things. So I just use $3 a watt to be conservative here. And then, depending on the sun and what kind of year we have, you should be able to get about $7,500 kilowatt, 7,500 kilowatt hours produced from those panels. And so, if you can get your house to 8, 9, 10,000 kilowatt hours you use a year, this could offset most, if not all of your energy. And again, that's a pretty big house. So if you've got a smaller home, this could very well take care of everything too.
Ben, how many panels would that be?
Probably 28, 30 panels?
Okay.
Guessing?
24.
24, you think? Okay. Yep.
250 watts panel.
Okay. Yep.
6 kilowatts.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So can you read that? It's pretty small. So just to show you kind of what we've done for people, there's lots of ways of financing these things if you want to finance them. But number one is we'll loan 100% of the system costs. We try to make it easy for people. Most people who are putting solar panels on their homes are they're people who are pretty thoughtful, and we just figured let's try to do this stuff, and so we'll if you want, we'll finance 100%. If you got cash you want to put into it, that's fine too. But and in some cases we do a 2-part loan. So what we do is, in this case, if it was an $18,000 cost, we'll lend you the full $18,000, and right now interest rates are pretty low, so let's say 4%. And maybe you do that for a year, and at the end of the year, you'd have to pay the interest, which would be $720. But then hopefully within that year, by the time that year's up, you would have gotten your federal and your state tax credits. Now again, that differs for different people. Some people have a bigger tax appetite than others. If you don't pay much in taxes, then it's a little hard to make use of the federal and state taxes, but they do roll forward. In other words, let's say you only have a $3,000 federal tax liability after the first year, well, you can use the rest the next year, okay? So you get that money, but it's just that some people may not get it all in year one. So we try to work with you to figure that out if that's important to you. But a lot of people do pay plenty of taxes, and so in this case, after year one, you file your taxes, you get the benefit of that full tax credit. Now, this isn't a tax deduction, it's a tax credit, so it's actual, it's basically cash. It's just you're paying the government less or they'll refund you some. And so it's 30% of the project cost, so 30% of $18,000 is going to be $5,400. And then the state credit is now actually a little better than it used to be. It's 60% of the federal credit. So in this case, it's about 18% of the total project cost, or $3,240. So you're going to get the value either that year or maybe over the next couple of years. And by the way, I think the IRS is saying that this is good now through 2016. So, we know that it's out there at least for the next 2 years. After that, it depends on whether they'll renew that or not. So that's how the credits would look. Well, then once you get that money back in, if you take those credits off of the $18,000, then you've got $9,360 left. That's kind of your net cost after tax. And so then we could make a second loan or refinance that first loan into a second loan and amortize it over 6 years. And the reason we kind of picked that is that, that's total 7 years. And 7 years is usually a good way to pay back equipment and things like that. So we say we do that at 4% for 6 years. Well, your payments would be $147 a month then for the next 6 years. So then, what does that mean for cash flow? Because a lot of times people, they want to know that. So your electricity bill is going to come in, and you're going to have a lot less electricity bill. And in this case, a 6 kilowatt system would produce, as I said, 7,500 kilowatts, right? And at 12 cents a kilowatt, you're saving $7,500 or $75 a month. Now, some months are going to be less, some months are going to be more, depending on the sun. But you're saving $75 a month. So that offsets that $147 a month payment, right? And so you're actually only having to come up with extra cash flow of $72 a month. And you had to pay the interest there after that first year. So what I'm trying to show people here is that your cash that you have to pay in is kind of that interest the first year, and then $72 a month extra. Otherwise, so they don't perfectly cash flow. I will tell you that when the Alliant rebate was in play, it was a lot juicier. It was a lot better. It was, you got some extra cash there from them, and so this even looked better then. So there is some cash flow that people will have to use. Will we go a little longer on the loan? Yeah, we'd probably go a little longer if we need to reduce that payment a little bit. But for most people, this is kind of what we suggest. So if you look at that interest you pay in year one, and then the additional cash you're paying out every year for the 6 years, you've got about $5,900 that you've had to shell out over and above what you would have if you wouldn't have done this project over a 7-year period. But, what's the return on that? And this is where, it's really hard to say exactly what the return would be. Because after 7 years, now you have a panel that's paid for, and it's kicking out energy. And so basically after 7 years, years 8 through whatever the life of the panels are, you've got 7,500 kilowatts of free electricity. Now they tell us that the panels do lose a little bit of productivity as they age. I don't know how much it is, but they say it's not a lot. So I'm using 7,500. The other thing that we know is that electricity isn't going to stay at 12 cents. It's going to keep going up. So if you just look at this really conservatively and you say, okay, years 8 through 20, let's say they've got a 20-year life, the panels themselves should. The inverters, the box you've got in your garage or whatever, that we don't know how long those will last. Sometimes you may have to do something to those. But let's just assume a 20-year life on these panels. I mean, nothing can really go wrong with panels unless you've got real bad hail. But they say that they should be able to take a lot of hail. And then even then you're supposed to have, they'd be on your homeowner's insurance policy, so you're protected. But anyway, so let's say you had a 20-year life. Well, I'm taking 7,500 kilowatt hours per year times 12 cents. And again, it's going to probably go up, so it's going to be better. So you got a $10,800 benefit then from this cash flow you paid out in the first 7 years. So what kind of return is that? Well, it's not great, but it's a return on your money. And so, you know, people aren't going to do this probably as a really great investment, but I think it is an investment. I think you do get a return. What it is, we don't know. It depends on the time value of money and all that stuff. But, you know, a lot of people are doing it for other reasons too. You know, you want to do it because you want to reduce your effect on the environment, and it feels good, and so that's kind of how I look at it. So there is a little cash flow for you. It is going to take a little bit of cash, even if you finance it, but it's not, you know, it's not huge. And then it's an investment. And then if electricity rates double, which they might, you're going to feel pretty good. You're going to feel pretty good when those things are paid for. And the other thing that was really fun in this, I think I talked about, and that was, you know, when you do this, the first thing you should do before you start producing electricity is figure out how to reduce what you're using. And that was really a fun project. And all the people that I've talked to, friends I've got that have done this, they really enjoyed the process of you know, figuring out what am I using now? Because most people have no clue what they use for electricity until you actually start getting your bills and, you know, tracking them and figuring out what's taking all this electricity. And so people have had a lot of fun figuring out how to reduce what they're using first, and then, you know, then go and produce it with a photovoltaic system. And so that's that. And then I know this is residential, but there are some people who've done some large residential projects. There are some people who've put in 20 kW systems on, you know, for their homes because they use a ton of electricity for whatever reason. Or commercial and farm. We've done some of them. There is a program through the Iowa Energy Center. The state of Iowa put some money into a revolving loan fund. And so if you've got a larger project, say more than $20,000 project, then we can go to the Iowa Energy Center and we can try to get some 0% matching money. And so what that means is we'd be able to reduce the interest rate on a loan down from, in the other example, is 4%. In this example, if the bank lent it at 4.5 and then we got 0% money, your blended rate would be 2.25. So it's a little more work, it's a little more paperwork to do that, and so that's what we kind of say. It's for projects that are bigger projects where you're going to finance more. It makes more sense to go get that. But we've done some of these, and it's, you know, we did that with the wind turbine here at Luther College, financed that, and it's a pretty good program. So there's revolving money out there, that 0% that we can go and get for some larger projects, and so everybody's situation is going to be different. Some people, we finance them and we just have a signature loan. If you've got a good credit score, you know, we can just do a signature loan and make it real easy. Other people want to do a home equity kind of loan because then they can deduct the interest from their taxes. And so we can do it a lot of different ways. It just depends. So if you or somebody needs to finance a project, you just come in, and we've got a couple people who will go through that with you to figure out the best way. So that's really all I had. Pretty simple. Are there any questions that I can try to field?
Do you know the cost of like an inverter if you need to replace it?
I don't know. Is anybody here?
Depends on what kind of inverter.
Yeah.
There's microinverters, there's string inverters. The bigger it is, the more it is, more money.
My sense is that the inverters are a smaller part of the overall investment, and that the panels themselves are bigger. So if there was a problem with the inverter, you'd work with your installer, and they'd probably. And there's warranties on these things too. The panels themselves, I think, have a pretty long warranty, maybe 20 years or something. 25. So the inverter is probably the thing that's a variable in this. Yeah. Yeah.
How's your personal project been with the snow? Does it melt off pretty good, or?
Yeah, again, it depends on the winter, but like now this morning they're clear. You know, and so usually if there's snow, within a few days it's melted off. But if it's really bad, I suppose it could be a few weeks too. That's on my house, and we've got a pretty good pitch. Now on top of the bank, the pitch is lower, and they're on the roof, and it's a flat roof, and so those things are covered up more of the winter, and so we lose some pretty good production there. Yes?
You didn't say anything about this, maybe it's not your thing, but do utility companies buy back the excess if you produce more than you need?
So here's where somebody can help me. It's all called net metering, right? And so basically, what you produce just offsets what you're using. And if you're producing more than what you're using, it actually gives you credits, and then you get those credits on a future bill. So it's just called net metering. But I don't think they'll ever pay you, will they? No. They'll never pay you.
Like Hawkeye?
No, they will buy it back, but at a very reduced cost of what you would be paying them.
Yep.
So it is not cost effective to try to sell the power to the utility company.
Right. Which is why they first want you to figure out what's your usage, and then they try to figure out, okay, what can we do to produce almost to that usage? And then, yeah, Alliant is, of course, if you're in town, is Alliant and REC out in the country, but they'll do both in net metering.
You know if you can bank that? So if you produce more in 1 month,
Yes.
and you need it in another month?
Mike, you want to talk?
Yeah, if your array is overproducing, at least with Alliant, they're keeping track of the overage, and it's accumulated, and you get a statement every month. And then in the winter, when it flips the other way, when you're using more than you're producing, you're using that banking reservoir and to keep your bill basically stable, which has been, for me, about $10 a month.
Yes, sir.
Is there anybody out there that's combined the solar with the geothermal system? And how would that affect your kilowatts on a residential?
Well, yes, I don't know the details, but like my dad, I know he's got a geothermal system at his house, and then he's got solar feeding in there. And so it is definitely possible. And, you know, if you do geothermal, then you use more electricity.
Correct.
And so then you want more solar production.
Well, my name is Mike Hinker, and I work with Ben at the bank, and I've had an array. This is actually our array here. And Barb, I'll let you and Jim introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Barb Dale. We live here in town, so we have a small array of 9 panels because our usage isn't very great, and it's on our roof.
And I'm Jim Dale, and I'm with her. Actually, we gave ourselves the whole solar system. We redid our roof. We did a bunch of other stuff prior to that, as was suggested here. And we did that as a Christmas anniversary gift to each other.
Well, this photograph is, I have a small farm just on the south edge of town, and my son here is an environmental studies major graduate. He lives in the cities, all my kids live in the cities, but he's always coming home when he does, he asks about this, how it's working, he wants to know the data. But our building said, this looks like it's way out in the middle of the field, but there's actually an outbuilding just right next to the edge of this photograph. So we tucked it in an area that was close enough to tie in with the electric box of that outbuilding. So that's the basic tie-in. This is a array that was supposed to match the usage of our farm. We have a small livestock operation with cattle, water, several outbuildings, including the house that uses about $148 worth of electricity a year on a historic basis. So this has been made to match. We didn't have any buildings that had the gables in the right angle, and we have a lot of trees. So we had plenty of room to put it in several different locations that worked to get full spectrum sun. So the first month we got a reading was May, and I was blown away because it produced 9 times how much we actually used. So I became a believer pretty quick, and then that banking hours, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like, Jesus, this is built way too much, or else we're just not using enough electricity. So in the winter it flip-flopped, and now we're feeding off the banking. This might be my son wanting an update. Sorry. So anyway, I'm a big believer. It's working. That's 36 panels. Like Ben had mentioned earlier, when Alliant comes in and the Winneshiek Energy District, and they pick all the low-hanging fruit from our operation, and that was to basically make it as lean and mean as possible before we consider putting this in, and that helped a lot. But basically, we're kind of a net zero electric farm, and I think I'd urge anybody that would consider this If you have any questions, I have all my statements here. I've got
Mike is actually he works for the bank, and we finance through him also. One thing that Ben didn't tell you was that we had a mortgage on our house, and we discovered that we could refinance our mortgage, and the money that we saved, because the mortgage loan had dropped considerably in that period of time from when we had it financed, virtually paid for our electricity. So he doesn't tell you that, but that's another possibility in there. And they'll really work with you well. I must recommend them.
We went to the bank because they were advertising energy loans, and this is what we wanted, and we got more than we counted on.
So
This
we
isn't a
felt
paid
the same way.
advertising.
You never know.
One of the things for me, I was so surrounded by it, because I was kind of late in getting into it, but doing all the loans for it, being around the Grimsteads, and all the folks that are talking about the solar, you know, and I talked to Larry and Ben, and they said it's a no-brainer. So, but the ethical portion of it is like, you know, I've got sons, I've now got a grandson, and if we have global warming, if this is a reality, you know, I want to show that I'm doing what I can to reduce my carbon footprint and raise the consciousness of our family network. And so it makes a lot of sense to me, dollars and cents, but you know, how do you weigh that ethic part of it? You know, that's a big thing too.
Mike mentioned that they have a lot of trees around their house, and we live up by Phelps Park where there are lots of trees too. But luckily, our south-facing roof is almost entirely unshaded. But it was fascinating to us the way they measure the shading of your house and how they calculate the positioning and the angle and all based on that. So, of course, this time of year the leaves are off the trees, so we count on getting more exposure even though the angle of the sun is lower. But we do have them on our second-story roof, so we have a hard time getting the snow off. And we love snow, but somehow or other we have to take the bad with the good.
One thing I would like to add about this particular array, these are 3 poles it sets on, and each of those really heavy steel poles are encased in 9 feet of concrete, and it has 2 settings. So in the wintertime it has a steep setting, and the snow doesn't stay on there. And even if it's well below freezing, if the sun's out, because they're black, it's melting it off. And so we haven't had, I've been surprised with how quickly the snow is gone, but I think that's because that winter setting on this particular array is steep. And then on April 1st, we're supposed to put it to the summer setting. So that amplifies the electricity.
Another thing to think about is that you're looking at your annualized production, and in January, with the angle of the sun and the daylight hours, that's not the time when you're counting on producing. You're really producing during the summer, a lot more. And so it really, a few snowy days where it might be covered because it wasn't quite freezing temperatures were there, your slope is too much. It's not going to impact production so much that it's an issue. You're just trying to eke out those extra watts, but it's not going to, summer is when you really produce.
We have a question, we'll start right here.
How close does the array, does the standalone have to be to the utility line or to the house?
Well, I needed to get it in an area that had full spectrum, so that was the first immediate thing. And at that point, you're going to pay the further it is away. You have to trench.
Right.
We had to dig a trench, and that adds some expense. In this particular case, I think it was like 70 feet. Trench, so.
We've installed systems as far as 700 feet from the electrical center.
If you put that on your roof, how heavy are those panels?
Roughly 3.5 pounds a square foot. It adds to your
3.5 pounds a square foot.
How many panels do you have?
9.
9.
But since we've bought a plug-in Prius, we may add one.
So is that right, that if you decide to add one, and if you have an optimizer type system, you can't add panels, and if you have a microinverter system, you can add panels?
We put microinverters on ours because we thought we might want to add one or two, and so we did want to do them individually, and also there was a little bit of a cost more, but we didn't find that the cost was significantly more.
Can you add to your system?
You know, I could. I don't exactly know how, but we built it to match our usage, and it's just turning out that our usage is not quite. So we're banking so many hours. I'm thinking of getting a Chevy Bolt so that I can. So maybe if we get 2 Chevy Bolts, I'll add to it.
The power company will like you. You're helping the rest of us keep the costs down.
Well, we're all talking as if PV were the only solar, and I just like to comment that when I built my new house, and I love my PV and my all-electric Mitsubishi and my pre-fuel, but I put passive sun glass on the south-facing windows, and I have solar hot air panels, and I love it that my furnace does not run no matter how cold the day is when the sun is out.
So were they items that you bought, or were they homemade?
No,
I know somebody
I
who's made
bought
some
out of
themselves.
the line, and, I mean, you get nothing, and there's no storage if there's no sun. But my house will easily get so warm that I have to switch to short circuit insurance.
Anybody know anything about whether Alliant would ever do that rebate again? I got in on the rebate. This project cost about $34,000, and Alliant kicked in about $12,000, and then there's state and federal, and so it was a no-brainer that way. It's not quite the same now, but the cost of the panels and the infrastructure have gone down, so that's helping. And the state and federal is still offering incentives, so there's still a lot of interest we've seen in it.
And what I've heard from Alliant is, no way. They're dealing with distributive generation, and there's other people that can talk about that way better than I could. But distributive generation is like if you have, say, like a nonprofit, use a church as an example. You can have third-party ownership. I'm not a financial person, so I'm not the person to ask about that. But there's a lot of different things that are coming up that that make ownership easier.
All of you are familiar with soil and water conservation districts. There's one of them in just about every county in the United States. The reason they are successful is because they provide farmers with high-quality technical expertise with regard to how to manage their soil and their water. The Winneshiek Energy District is the first and only one in the United States. Our goal, and when we're done, short-term goal, is to have one in every county in the United States. But basically, I'm kidding, you're supposed to laugh. Anyway, the idea is to bring high-quality technical expertise to every county, every homeowner, every business owner, every farmer, so that when it comes to managing your energy inputs, you have the best quality assistance that you can have. And so next door, I was just talking about our new initiative with regard to agricultural energy planning. We have a new grant from the USDA trying to help farmers conserve energy, use less, save more money, keep it in their pocket, etc. We've been doing that in Decorah through our home energy planning service and our small business service, and through our Green Iowa AmeriCorps teams. And we've reached hundreds of households in this county. We've mobilized over $1 million of investment in energy efficiency. This is our latest case statement. Some of you probably got this in the mail. I'm just gonna, I don't know, Stratus, if you want to pass these out, I'm happy to have you do that. But I'll be around in the concourse, but I just want to say welcome and thank you for coming. On behalf of both Luther College and the Energy District, I serve on the board of the Winneshiek Energy District. So if you have any questions about the organization, please ask me. And I think that's all I want to say. I got to get back over there and keep our little panel running. So, thanks, everybody. Back to here.
If I could add just something real quick to what Jim said, there were a lot of questions on geothermal and how things work. And like, for instance, you could have a 4,000 square foot home that isn't insulated. It uses a ton of heat. Or you could have one that's very well insulated. The Energy District can help you sort out a lot of those variables. And there are a lot of variables. And they can help you make sense of what your past bills are and help you kind of just steer you in the right direction.
It seems to me that a large variable is whether you heat with electricity or not. We are in an older home and would have had to completely retrofit for electric heat. And so we, first of all, replaced to a very high efficiency gas furnace, because now I'm worried about peak gas. You know, we're talking about peak oil all the time, but I have this concern about gas. So if you're heating with electricity, yeah, you're going to use a lot more than we are.
So gas has a fracking problem that's getting worse too.
How many here have solar panels? Raise your hand.
What's that?
Kind of preaching to the choir here again. How many are interested in trying to put something in maybe this year? Wow. Well, there's a lot of installers here today, so there's good information going to be exchanged. So, another question?
What's it cost to insure that system there? Like, how much to raise your homeowners? Or?
Yeah, there was an extra rider on our policy. It was not very significant.
They told us $10 a month for ours.
Does it affect your property tax?
I don't know how it's going to affect my taxes yet.
So, solar in Iowa is tax exempt for property tax, well,
5 years.
5 years, thank you. The other thing to keep in mind is if you're really interested in putting solar up, the way that SF 2340, which is the state incentive, works with the investment tax credit, which is the federal tax credit. Once that tax credit runs out in 2016, that federal, the state one, if it goes down to 10% or goes away, the state one's going to mirror that. And with the Alliant rebate, you could have your name in the queue and then get it producing later. With this, to capture both those incentives, it's got to be up and producing. And so you really have to have this planning starting, you know, a little bit ahead of it expiring in 2016. So keep that in mind, that it's not the same way that the old rebate works.
Another question?
I had a question on, you know, solar heats water fastest, and I was just wondering if anybody has any experience of using, for hot water heaters, using panels to actually heat your hot water heaters.
It's about half the cost of electricity. Natural gas is still cheaper.
But if you're getting floor heating with hot water heater, I would think that would be a very...
So, solar, the sun produces heat. I mean, thank goodness. It really is a variable on how well your home is insulated, just like electricity is. There's a certain size system that's right for you. And sometimes it's not just a blanket statement. I do solar electric and solar hot water and solar air, and passive solar design. So it all has its place. It's still cheaper than electricity, but it may not be right in your particular application.
Yeah. Research is ongoing.
Yeah.
What's the life expectancy? Yeah.
Well, I guess it's warranted for 25 years. The amount of photovoltaic efficiency and power will deplete over the years. Mr. Novak, I don't know if you can add anything to how, after 10 years, how much power do you think this thing will, based on what it's producing now?
It's a sliding scale of 80% and 25 years is the warranty, linear warranty. So it's roughly 0.2% a year.
So basically, in simple terms, I would be probably needing to replace the panels, like I would replace a roof, for example, a shingled roof, after how many years, so that I can maintain?
I would never replace the panels. Basically, if you have a 300-watt panel and 30 years, it's still putting out 150 watts. It's basically free electricity.
I've got panels up to 40
You could add a
years.
panel to pick up
We've got
that
panels
20% that you're going to
40
lose in
years,
25 years.
40.
But that is pretty nominal, probably, yeah.
85 to, yeah, 36.
You've installed panels in 1985?
And they work just as good today as...
They've replaced all the inverters, because back then you had any kind of sine wave as long as it was square. And that's a joke for people that understand what sine wave is. Yeah, they've replaced the inverters and they work great.
Wow. Well, I guess that...
Yeah, what we can do is, so I'll have these, the Jim dropped off, set them on a table out here, but installers, a lot of them are outside, others will be outside. So if you want to come out, have a pastry and talk to the people out there to get more one-on-one questions going. They'll be available for the next, I think, 45 minutes to an hour. We'll chat out in the hallway. But thank you guys for showing up and